Have you ever wondered about your microbes and how they may play a role in your mood, your weight, your blood sugar, and your health? Today, I'm joined with Anu Simh. She's a board certified functional health coach and the founder of Nine Arms of Wellness. And she specializes in helping women build and maintain their healthy goal weight by focusing on gut health. And she has a new book coming out. And today we shared some very important information about how to flourish by really feeding your microbiome. We talked a little bit about dietary changes that not only feed your microbiome, but can lead to reduction in belly fat and even reduce your risk for cancer. So join me today on Menopause Mastery, where I'm talking to Anu about your microbiome. All right, Anu. I'm
Hi,
so excited for us to talk because the microbiome and feeding the microbiome is one of my favorite subjects, as you very well know.
I
And
do.
I'm excited to really share your information, your knowledge, and especially your new book that's coming out, and how people can really learn how to feed through eating, feed their microbiome so they can have longevity. So thank you so much.
Thank
So let's
you.
let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about so we were just sharing earlier before we hopped on how much women are really frustrated with body composition at perimenopause and menopause. So, the average woman will gain, so 80% of women gain 15 to 20% of their body weight and body fat. So if
Yeah.
you're 150 pounds, that's a good 20 pounds in body fat during this transition by doing the same thing you were doing before. And so body composition, weight, where it's distributed is, I think, a big frustration. Even if somebody doesn't actually gain physical weight, it
Yeah.
kind of redistributes.
Yeah.
But the microbiome has a lot to do with that. So I'd love for you to share, how do the microbes really play a role after all of your research and everything in belly fat?
Well, thank you, Betty. Yeah. So maybe we start with I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and I know you talk about um, women who kind of blame themselves. They say, well, maybe I don't have enough willpower, or maybe I'm not counting calories, there's no calorie restriction, things like that. And I think you've said this many times that it has nothing to do with it. And a big part of what's happening is the hormonal shift. But added to that, I kind of look at the microbiome as well, because the microbes, your microbial balance holds a key. It's a key piece to this whole puzzle of how the a woman's body and how she stores fat changes with being menopausal and postmenopausal. Most of the time before menopause, how are we holding our fat? We're holding it in our thighs, in our butt, or things like that. And it's still kind of annoying, but it's relatively harmless, right? But then menopause hits, your estrogen sort of tanks, um, the microbial composition starts changing, and then visceral fat or fat around your organs increase, and that's around your liver or even around your pancreas and things like that, and that is really dangerous. So we're not just looking at a fat that is um, preventing you from being your hot self, but something even deeper. And you said something that's very true. A lot of women who may not have, on the outside, they may look very skinny, but that doesn't mean that they don't have this visceral fat inside. I think it's called thin outside and fat inside or something, Tofi in the research world, right? And that I see too, And so for listeners saying, "Oh, I'm not fat, I don't have to really worry about it." No, I mean, visceral fat is something that really does happen to a lot of postmenopausal women, and hormones have a role to play, but your microbiome definitely does. So one of the things that research is showing us that in this is a recent study that postmenopausal women with this visceral fat, this fat around the viscera, their microbiome looks very different from either peri or just younger women without the visceral fat, because it becomes a little bit more inflammatory, pro-inflammatory, meaning that they start having a microbial composition with bacteria like proteobacteria that are we don't want too much of it. And anyway, when we're thinking about microbiome, it's not about good or bad, but it's about the Goldilocks principle, just making sure everything is in balance. So what happens when you have these guys who are pro-inflammatory? The systemic inflammation increases. You have more of this fat storage, things like cortisol, insulin, all of that increases. These are all sister hormones that can cause more havoc. And finally, you have this hormonal chaos and a microbial chaos. And that's not a good place to be.
No, no, and it's interesting because, you're going back to kind of the fat skinny, right? Like, you
Mm.
could be thin and still overweight. It's really that waist circumference and not the jiggly bits. Like, I always explain, so jiggly bits,
Yeah.
like, we hate the jiggly bits. Like, I was standing in front of the mirror today and I'm like, I kind of wanted to play Pac-Man with my belly button because it's like, oh, look at the fluffy,
Yeah.
right? But the fluffy stuff on the outside is not the injurious stuff. It's the stuff underneath the muscle.
Yeah.
So if your waist circumference got bigger, like all of a sudden your pants are too tight around
Yeah.
the middle, and that's a sign regardless. And
Yeah.
it's an easy way to low tech it and kind of go, yeah, I think this is happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think a good way to do it is having like a baseline DEXA scan. I think that's something that's great to have, but not everyone can. So, what you're suggesting is a great way to start using a waist circumference. I know I had a client who came to me for almost like 100-pound weight loss. The immediate thing that I thought of was like, how is her metabolic picture? So I suggested to her that she gets all of her numbers checked, her A1C and her cholesterol, and every single thing was perfect.
Yep.
She was storing all her fat subcutaneously. And I
Yeah.
think I thought of it as a genetic lottery, just being able to do that. But of course, she didn't view it like that. If losing 100 pounds is a challenge, right? So, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point, because that's the other thing women often get told. Because again, Western medicine looks at it as a willpower problem and
hmm
you're lazy, slovenly, not you're lying, all of that, which really pisses me off. But often somebody who may be overweight will get labs and they look completely normal,
yeah.
not all the time, right? And they're basically a healthy person
Yeah.
with excess body fat.
Yeah.
But on the same respect, you can have somebody that would look just fine and they are a metabolic mess
Yeah.
inside,
In fact,
you
that is a
know.
more dangerous thing because they're not really thinking that they're metabolic. I mean, are they checking for their metabolic picture? No, because everything looks great on the outside. That would be the more
Mhm.
dangerous kind of fat, I think, too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, because 'cause they're like, "Oh, of course I'm healthy,"
yeah.
so they don't ever get their high blood pressure checked or
Yeah.
their labs checked or other things, so I think that's true too. Alright, so let's talk about, you talk a lot about fiber being crucial, and this is absolutely a hammer I keep, hitting. I'm like, "Come on, man, we gotta do this."
Yeah.
The average American has what did you find in your research? Like 8
Oh,
grams a day,
8.
if they're lucky. I was like, that's if they did,
Yeah.
like, a whole wheat bun on their junk food, like, you know what I mean? It's just horrifying.
Yeah.
Like, no fiber whatsoever. Let's talk about it because I think it's misunderstood,
Yeah.
and everybody thinks fiber only comes from processed grains,
Oh.
because the marketing says high fiber
Fiber.
food.
Or,
Oh,
like a cereal with added fiber or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's get it.
Yeah, fiber is, oh my gosh, if I could just say in a nutshell what my book is about, it's about fiber because that's what research is showing us. Like the more fiber you add to your diet, it really helps you cardiovascularly, metabolically, helps you be more insulin sensitive. All the things that are become problematic and your chronic disease risk increases when you're postmenopausal. So fiber could be that little gift you give yourself on a daily basis to help with visceral fat, insulin resistance, cholesterol, because even cholesterol picture can change after postmenopause, right? I mean, I see so many clients with normal ApoBs completely shift postmenopausally, and you really and the one thing that research is showing us is fiber really does make a difference. So, really understanding what fiber is and how it helps is key. And fiber, when we take in fiber, we don't digest it. It goes directly to the colon, and all your incredible microbes right there are just waiting for this feast. They feast on it because it's fuel to them, and they produce some really healthy compounds called short chain fatty acids, and especially butyrate. And the reason this is important is it really helps with decreasing inflammation, keeping your insulin resistance in check, and just so many more things, especially, and even cortisol and belly fat. So I
Yeah.
think it plays such a huge role, and both soluble and insoluble fibers are important. They have their own role to play. Soluble is the kind that makes a like a gel in water, and it helps you cardiovascularly. It helps you with bringing that inflammation down. It's a strong role to play even with belly fat, I think, just with the storage and stuff. And in insoluble, I think of it as a nature's broom. It just helps with
Yeah.
gut motility and adding bulk to your stool. And I mean, there are days if you're backed up, you are going to feel heavy and lousy. And so having that both in insoluble and soluble fiber is key to lifelong health. Um, I could say this for the entire program and just feel like there's nothing more to add. Let's just add more fiber to our diets, guys, and easy to do it. It's not as complicated as people make it out to be, but it's like anything, you need a system. You need to know how to add it, where to add it. And once you have a system around this goal of adding more fiber, then it becomes second nature. Pretty soon, it's going to be procedural, like brushing your teeth. That's how I look at it. Today, no one needs to tell me, oh, you need to have fiber first thing in the morning. I do it starting with my morning coffee. I have my fiber added to it. So has a good jump start for the day.
It's I have to say I do fiber in my coffee also.
Yeah.
It's my vehicle,
Yeah.
I'm like, "I can hide it in there."
Yeah.
I wanna share some stuff because every woman's terrified of cancer, right? And everybody's terrified, but particularly breast cancer. Well, I looked up some statistics of fiber. So higher the fiber intake, reduce cancer risk across the board. But like colorectal cancer, there's a stat that for every 10 grams of fiber that's increased from the average American diet, we see a reduction in cancer risk by 7%. But breast cancer is like the higher the fiber diet, it reduces risks
Yeah.
by 7 to 15%. So 15% reduction across the board just by
Hmm.
increasing your fiber. And then if you get to like gastric and esophageal, it's like 34 to 50% reduced risk. So like it's not only going to feed your microbiome, keep you regular, but it may very well be one of the most important
Yeah.
things you do for cancer
And
risk.
cancer risk increases after postmenopause. And as we get older, right, then the risk is
Yep.
always higher. And even with colon cancer, one of the big things is fiber rich foods, to have good gut motility and having these short chain fatty acids to help you. And that's just not the only thing. There's so many other things. Gut brain axis, you know, people who
Mhm.
have more fiber have this messaging, a little bit more, clear clarity and less anxiety. So many benefits from just this fiber.
Yeah. The reality is I think if people really understood how much control the microbiome had over the human body, and that essentially a low fiber diet basically kills off all the good probiotics and lets the nasty little buggers grow, and that they produce stuff you don't want,
You don't
right?
want,
Like,
and the thing is, really have to think about your microbiome as a metabolic control center, because what is it doing? It's digesting your food. It's deciding how much energy to get out of the foods that you eat, and so right there, it could be like how much energy is not just metabolism as we think about metabolism, but from a microbial perspective. And we also know from research that the ratios of the microbes in you can determine whether weight loss is you successful with weight loss and weight management or not. And the microbiome also holds on to this obesity memory. Let's say you are on a restricted diet and you lose a lot of weight, and you're happy, but the microbiome is like holds on to that memory. because you were on a restricted diet. You were not eating all the flavonoids and the polyphenols and all the things that they really appreciate. So they don't have these bacteria that are really adept at burning energy, from food. So that weight comes back. So there's
Yeah.
such a connection to microbiome and weight loss and weight management.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think it's fascinating. When I was working on my dissertation, I was, looking at, obviously, their byproducts, their enzymatic byproducts, and I came across a bunch of research looking at we know that they produce serotonin and GABA, and they metabolize them and all those things, but they were looking at drug metabolism, so the effectiveness of a particular medication. And what they found is it wasn't just the activity of one microbe. It wasn't if this microbe is there, it works better, but it had to be this microbe in a certain amount relative to this other microbe
Yeah.
in order for it to be metabolized properly to have like any real effect.
Yeah.
So even the things we sort of take for granted in medicine that, oh, we can give somebody a medication, it's all going to act the same. It's very
Mhm.
well all dependent on the microbes and the combination relative to each
Yeah,
other. And so it's
absolutely.
just much more nuanced than that. I can't wait for science to kind of advance
Yeah.
another 10 years and we get better data there.
I mean, at least you can like now versus like even when the Human Microbiome Project started. I mean, we know so much more,
Yeah.
just what the even just the functions that they do for us. I mean, what are they doing for us? They're producing these compounds, they're
Mhm.
producing vitamins, they're helping us with the neurotransmitters. And I mean, I'm not making this relationship or the symbiotic partnership romantic. It's just how it is. They are inside of us. They're our forever guests. They're not going anywhere. We better take care of them so they reward us, you know, just because of the symbiotic nature of the relationship by giving us what we need. So it just makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I always joke with people. I'm like, they'll say, "Well, which probiotic should I take?" Or, "I wanna take this one or this one," and whatever, and I'm like, "Look, the only reason why they're healthy is because there's a richness and diversity, there's a lot of
Yeah.
them, right?" And the truth is lactobacillus, if it was the only microbe in your gut, would kill you
Yeah.
just the same as C. diff. Like,
Yeah.
you have to have variety.
Yeah. And we don't,
You know
I mean, if you really think
No.
about it, comparing us to the Hadza tribe or even the modern, hunter gatherers, they have like 1,500, 2,000 species, and we have a paltry 300, 350, something like that. And I personally haven't even seen that in my practice. It's like, I think the highest is like 145 or 146, and the lowest is B20. So can you
Oh my goodness,
imagine the
yeah.
person with the 20 species, a ticking time bomb? Even before I even did the test, I knew there was a gut brain problem. There was of course, a gut problem, cardiovascular issues, just slew of problems, that are just waiting to like a perfect storm, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely increasing and making your microbiome resilient, because a resilient microbiome is a healthy microbiome. We all go through, we have times when we have to take things like antibiotics. And well, that's just, that's how it is. So, but if we have a resilient microbiome, they can bounce back very quickly from it. If not, it just becomes another layer to the problem. Um, I think it's very important to take care of them. And it's not just about adding a probiotic to your mix, it is about feeding them. And so you produce your own, you increase your bacterial diversity.
Yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts because for the last 20 years, I mean, when I was first in practice, stool tests were not great because they were culture only, and then food sensitivity testing was a little bit actually from a scientific standpoint, a little bit better, particularly when you're trying to narrow down why somebody
Mhm.
is having problems. And now I always lean in. I'm like, no, you're going to poop in a tray. That's just how this is going to roll. And may or may not do food sensitivities. But the other thing that I always looked at was early on, I definitely gave fiber and other stuff, but I used probiotics, I would say more, way more than I do now,
Mhm.
right? Knowing what I know
Yeah.
that really probiotics are like snowbirds. They sort of hang out for a little while, but they get washed out.
Yeah.
They influence the growth of their others. So they do have good science showing that they could be influential, but
Yeah.
they don't colonize.
No, it's
You know,
transient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very transient. So the food is where it's at. So let's talk about what are the best foods, right? To really help really hone in on the microbes. We talked a little bit about fiber and we sort of mentioned the
Mhm.
phenols and stuff, but I'd like to kind of give some
Yeah.
real concrete,
Yeah.
like somebody's listening and they're like, okay, how do I get fiber in?
Yeah.
How do I feed these little guys? Ladies, if you're noticing more fine lines and wrinkles, it's not just about aging, it's about the loss of estrogen. And that affects our skin structure, making it drier, thinner, less firm. But here's the great news I've created Biased Mastery Cream to help. This luxurious bioidentical estrogen cream supports your natural hydration and elasticity. It's packed with nourishing oils like olive, jojoba, aloe, and coconut, so it feels amazing and helps soften those lines and bring back that healthy glow. I've been using it, and let me tell you, my skin has never looked or felt better. It's smoother, more radiant, and those little cracks and creases are way less noticeable. If you're ready to give your skin some extra love, check out Buy Est Mastery on the Metabolic Blueprint website. And that's metabolicblueprint.com/. By Est Mastery. That's Biest Mastery, Mastery. And your face will thank you.
So I think food is so personal. Maybe I start there because there's such a big fight going around, carnivore,
Oh my
um,
gosh.
omnivore, vegan, and they're all kind of, saying that their diet is the best. But what I want to propose is just stick to the diet that makes you feel happy, but just take care of the microbes. And the microbiome, feeding the microbiome is there are a few things that they require. They require fiber. I look in the book I talk about it as I call it the flourish diet because you
Yes.
definitely flourish when your microbiome is flourishing, and you start with a foundational layer. If
Yes.
you are not eating enough fruits and veggies, that can be where you're getting your fiber from. And a lot of people are on very restricted diets because they're not able to digest, or they've been on low carb diets for a very, very long time, and they feel poorly when they have too much fiber, or they have a CTM, the CGM, spikes. They don't understand blood sugar spikes. They think that's the end of it all, and so
Mhm.
they blame the food, right? So instead, if we could just kind of slowly add some veggies that are easy to digest, and then within weeks, so 2, 3, 4 weeks, just add other enhancers like spices and herbs that are really rich in polyphenolic compounds like cloves and cinnamon and cardamom, sweet spices. All of them have good studies behind them that they are high in polyphenols, and polyphenols are plant compounds that are anti-inflammatory, and they're really, really good for you. And ways to just simply
See,
add
see.
these things into your diet, and then eventually go into the more higher FODMAP foods, because most people are struggling with digesting these rich, fiber rich foods because they don't have the right kind of bacteria to go to bat for them, because they are the ones digesting it, cellulose, just all of the enzymes. So that would be my suggestion. Go small and create a system. Find out if you are able to digest beans, tell yourself every day I'm going to soak some beans so my microbiome is nourished the next day. If you cannot digest beans, maybe an easier digesting lentil would be the second phase. You've added the veggies, you add some beans and legumes. And of course, people are going to say, yeah, but you don't know anything about the phytic acid and the lectins and all of that stuff, and there is no research that is supporting it. It's just a few influencers who are scaring the, can I say shit?
Yeah.
Scare the shit out of you. So I feel like science should be front and forward. You need to really understand the science behind this. And science is telling us, whether it's RCTs or epidemiological studies, are telling us these are the bread and butter for our microbiome. They thrive and we thrive. I mean, especially if you think about the number one risk for of dying is cardiovascular issues, heart
Yep.
disease, high cholesterol, and there are people screening that cholesterol does not matter. I really have a problem with that because it really puts us, the consumers of this kind of message, at a loss. Who do we listen to? So I say, when you're in that situation, always choose science first.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because yes, so lectins, phytic acid, oxalate, all these things are things that exist in plants because they can't get up and run from you.
Yeah.
To a plant, we are a pest, and yes,
Yeah.
they
It's
are
anti-nutrient.
anti-nutrients,
Yeah.
but the reality is they are mostly destroyed in appropriate cooking context. Um, the other thing that I see a lot too is you wouldn't have a problem with oxalates or lectins or anything else if you ate seasonally
Yeah.
because you wouldn't be able to overeat any particular food ad nauseum.
Yeah.
But the people that are buying a container of spinach and juicing that sucker every day, yeah, you're going to get a toxic level
Yeah.
of oxalate
And
because we weren't
again,
intended.
you
You
have
wouldn't eat that.
yeah, and you have bacteria that are actually good oxalobacterial formagens. They actually
Yep,
do digest the oxalates.
and
And
they like it.
yeah,
They're like, "Thank
like
you."
yesterday,
Yeah.
I had some lamb's quarters, growing in my
Mhm.
garden, and that's really high in oxalate,
Yep.
oxalic acid. So am I going to have like a entire bucket of it? No, we're just having a little bit that is sauteed with a little bit of olive oil. So you use common sense in your approach to things that are high in. And like you said, cooking takes care of most of the problems. And if you're still
Yes.
struggling with, there are certain herbs and spices that you can add, like beans, for example. It
Mhm.
does so well with an herb like epazote, which is
Yes.
I love adding episode because it really cuts down the flatulence. And
Mhm.
again, when you think about flatulence, you think about what these are all because of toxic metabolites in the gut. There's an
Yeah.
overproduction of flatulence. And when people say this, oh my gosh, but I did fart like 5 times today. No, that's normal, guys.
Yeah, sorry, it will not go away. You have gas, it's gonna come out
Yeah.
one direction or the other, it's natural.
Yeah. We're talking that rotten egg smell, that
Yeah,
putrefaction. So then you start digging deeper and saying, how are you handling the protein fermentation? The proteins aren't supposed to be digested in your colon. So if that is happening, then there are some toxic metabolites. So, um,
totally. Yeah, cadaverine, putrescine, so
yeah,
that should tell everybody if your gas smells really bad, you need a stool test to see if you're producing those kind of
yeah,
byproducts 'cause they do what they say they make,
yeah,
cadaverine. That is
yeah,
part of what breaks down human bodies when we die.
yeah,
Sorry, just telling it
yeah,
like it
yeah,
is,
it
ma'am.
is.
Like, yeah, give me a half hour, I can get you off
I
of a full
know.
carnivore diet.
I don't.
And I'm not anti-meat, I'm just saying, "Hey, man, you gotta make sure you feed your microbes, we need
Yeah,
those nutrients, we absolutely do." The other thing I appreciate, and I appreciate this about your book, but also I appreciate it out of cultures from East Asia and India, and even if we look like South America and even Mexico and throughout the Yucatan Peninsula, they have such a rich utilization of spices, right? Like extraordinary, all of which are medicinal, right? All of which have these extraordinary impacts on the microbiome. Then you get to the standard Caucasian, Northern European, like, peppers about as far as we go. Like, we have no spices, really, like, there's nothing. Maybe some tarragon. I don't even think tarragon because
yeah,
the entire spice road came out of Asia, and I think that's the other thing. Your book is so respective of people's cultures, right? Like, not imposing a particular cultural thing, but I think it also implores people to say, "Hey, am I branching out and utilizing a wider variety of herbs?"
yeah,
You know?
yeah. And the thing is, I mean, regardless of what's happening today in this country, it is a melting pot. We have so many beautiful cultures and cuisines from all over the world, and it's really a stone's throw away from anyone's, immediate community. Like if you're constantly shopping at like a Ralph's or something like that, just branch out a bit. Venture
Mhm.
into your Chinese market or your Middle Eastern market or your Indian market. You're going to find incredible variety that you've never even heard of, like vegetables and herbs and spices that are just so brilliant for your microbiome. And that requires a little bit of an curiosity and an adventurous spirit when it comes to food. Most of us mono eat because it's comfortable, it's comfort food. But even that comfort food can be changed. Like, for example, I have tried so hard to eat natto because it's so high in K2. It's so good for you,
Yep.
fermented. But it is one of the most freaking difficult things for me as far as
I can't eat natto.
yeah.
I'm like, I'm natto. I'll do sauerkraut. I'll do kimchi. I'll do almost. I love anything that is been
Fermented.
fermented, but natto is like,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
that's
that's
a
funny, but I
try
actually
and keep it. Yeah,
to
I
keep
can't
it
do it.
down, it's really kind of slimy and but then I
Yeah.
read somewhere that if and my daughter-in-law is Korean. She said all you need to do
Mm.
is mix it with rice and eat it, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
then and so I boiled and cooled my rice, added this, and I'm a spice girl, so I added a bunch of spices to kind of mask the taste, and I can tolerate it now because I know the benefit of natto.
Yes,
So,
yes. Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know what natto is, it is a fermented soy product, and it has extraordinary, like, blood thinning effects, like, it's just and then obviously you get the microbiome and the everything
yeah,
else that's with it, but it is I would say it's a hard thing to palate for, particularly a somebody with, European descent, it's just out there for
it's
them,
it's
and I'm a
challenging.
real adventurous
Yeah.
eater, I'll say that. Very, very adventurous. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Don't tell me what it is until after I have it, just make sure it's gluten-free,"
Yeah.
you know? Because 'Cause I'm like, I'll try anything,
Mm.
just don't tell me what it is if it's something that I may not be familiar with,
Yeah.
I say it that way. So, awesome. So we talked a little bit about fiber, all right, and we talked about that. So, I wanna so you obviously the fiber, the spices and things like that, the phenolic foods, and then obviously fruit falls into that world. So let's talk because fruit also, all of a sudden people go, I'm off fruit
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
got high sugar. I'm like, dude, raspberries are some of the highest,
Yeah.
fiber per ounce. Like,
Yeah.
stop,
I
just
mean, if
stop.
you compare them on an ORIC scale, blueberries, raspberries are really high up there, as far as antioxidant activity. I think grouping everything into one basket and making, like, for example, I'll have clients say, I don't do carbs. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Everything has carbs. I think what they mean is like, I'm trying to stay off the donuts and the pizza and things like that. But
Mhm.
grouping carbohydrates with the complex microbiome accessible carbohydrates is not it's a great idea. So fruits also in the same category. They're all considered bad right now, but fruits don't have to be bad. Like all the berries, like if you're constipated, dragon fruit is amazing. Kiwi is great. Naturally occurring melatonin at night. There are so many things that we can get from fruits. But if you have insulin resistance, meaning your blood, your doctor says your A1C is like 5.8 or 5.9, you're going towards diabetes, then I would say be a little bit more cautious about the kind of fruits because some of them are higher in sugar and you just watch that and eat it moderately. But other things like berries should be fine. The only time I feel like, Betty, that I say maybe just watch the fruit is with someone with high LDL and
Mhm.
maybe ApoB. If they're thinking they want to go completely from a diet and lifestyle perspective and
Yeah.
not take a medication for it. So if that is your first
Yeah, because
goal,
they probably have high trigs, right? I
yeah,
would think
yeah.
their trigs would be high
So
too, so
that's
yeah, so
yeah,
some
yeah.
yeah,
So we we
I
s-
could
we
I could
can
say that.
we could stop there and then we'll figure it out. If the trigs are okay and they're
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's important to note that, fruit in its natural form comes with like all the right thing. And again, we wouldn't eat strawberries every single day of the year. You
yeah,
wouldn't eat blueberries every single day of the year. You wouldn't have a banana every day of the
yeah,
year because it wasn't really available. And so if we ate seasonally and we had a serving or, two, which is a half cup
yeah.
cooked or a cup raw, generally speaking, or a medium-sized apple, we're not getting a ton of it.
Yeah.
Like I've met people that I had somebody that literally had gout. This will be amazing
Mhm,
too. Had gout so bad, and she was having like 2 to 3 cups of fruit a day, completely intact,
mhm.
right? But she had pretty good activity at the
Yeah.
liver, and we got the fruit out of her diet, and she was allowed like a half cup a day,
Mhm.
never had gout again.
Wow.
I mean, I'm talking 15, 16
Yeah.
years. And she had struggled with it for most of her
Yeah.
adult life. She was in her 60s when I first saw her. She's in her
Yeah.
80s now. But I was like, you can get too much of a good thing. So
Right.
you
And that's
know?
the thing, and I think you were spot on when you said eat seasonally. Eastern medicine like Ayurveda or
Mhm.
traditional Chinese medicine, they all think about climate, they think about seasonal eating because it's such a part of this whole the composition of who you are, your circadian rhythm, when you eat, how you eat, what you eat is so important, and yeah, I think you're 100% right about seasonal eating. I think it's, in fact, I have
Yeah.
journals that go with the book, and
Oh,
and
nice.
it's all seasonal, because every season has some incredible treasures for us. And I always have trouble when someone is in the like smack wintertime eating a mango. Like, dude, where'd you get that from? Like,
I
it's
know it has higher
travel.
frequent yeah, frequent flyer miles.
Yeah.
It's got better American airline miles than you do. Yeah, or they're doing, strawberries,
Yeah.
you know? There's a few fruits that are still that are still seasonal, but it's pretty rare now,
Hmm.
because we have that global food supply.
Yeah.
But the reality is the other thing, if you think about the nutrient levels at the time of being picked before it takes its cross
Yeah.
world tour, by the time you get it,
Yeah.
it's lost a lot of that value because it's picked kind of green so
Yeah.
it could age in the
Yeah.
containers. So like all of that. So it's also bringing food back to,
And going to your
local.
farmer's market. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I'd like to believe I have a green thumb, but right now, no, because I had some towers, some hydroponic
Yeah.
towers, and all I was doing is feeding the squirrels.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, forget it. So yeah, so I'm not doing that at the moment. I can't figure out how to keep them out of it. Squirrels and
Yeah.
bunnies, we would
I
come in, everything would be chewed up.
That's it.
So
That's one of my passions is gardening. And a part of it is also I know that my microbes like it when I'm digging in the dirt and, it's very helping. Some of these are so easy to grow, like especially herbs,
yeah,
you don't need like a huge pot to grow it. It could be just few little pots of mint and cilantro or, things like that, so you're not
yeah.
looking to buy from the outside. And these salad greens and things like that is where we have problems with, like having a food poisoning event or something like that.
Yes. Yeah,
So
the baby leafy
baby leafy
greens and
greens, yeah.
microgreens. Yeah. Yeah, and
Mm,
and with our current administration plans, that is not going to improve.
yeah.
Hate to break it to everybody. It's our foodborne illness is gonna get worse, much like the measles are
Yeah.
at the moment.
Ah,
So
I'm glad you said that.
I have to take my shot.
Yeah.
It's just the reality. I'm not gonna pretend that it's not
Yeah.
like,
It
it's
is
the
what it
truth.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, it totally is what it is. Now, okay, so I would love for you to talk about your book and where people can get it and how they can find you online. Because I'm so excited that I got an advanced copy electronically and I could look at it and read it. And yeah, I love for my listeners to know how to get your book.
Well, once it's out end of the month, it's going to be available where all books are sold. And it's also available on my website, ninearmsofwellness.com. And people can follow me on Instagram at Nine Arms of Wellness as well.
Yep. So 9 Arms of Wellness.
Mm.
And of course, it'll be on Amazon if you're actually buying from Amazon, but other online store and vendors as well. And then, like you said, you have workbooks that go with it, the
Yeah.
seasonal kind of journals.
Journals to kind of really kind of learn that small shifts can make huge changes. So, really, from one season to another, you can really kind of track your own progress.
Yes, awesome. Well, Anu, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so
Oh, you're
much.
welcome. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And I love listening to you. And I really, really, I'm so grateful to have people like you just telling women who are in this postmenopausal stage that it's all okay and
Yeah.
it does not have to be treated like a disease. I think I have the biggest problem with that, when I
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing because I kinda go back and forth on that really. It's like you want it to be called that because you want research to be done. Because right now they're like it's a rite of passage and
Yeah,
even though you're going a third of your life without it, but it's not truly a disease state, it's a hormone deficiency state of
yeah,
which we are outliving our normal lifespan.
yeah.
And so it's we
Yeah.
shouldn't even have to make those
Yeah,
distinctions.
but
It's
I
like
think you're right.
100%.
From a research perspective, we need so much more in every aspect of like the whole system research. But I think women are told that this is it. This everything
Oh, yeah.
sucks. Your libido, your sex life, your
Yeah.
skin, all of that. I mean, and we forget that we have such wisdom. We accrued so much knowledge over the years of, being on this earth. And I don't know, I feel like that is important too. I don't know if you
No,
agree.
I
Yeah, I
agree.
agree.
No, I agree. I mean, some of it's cultural, the Western world has a lot of ageism, so you go to another culture and they see aging as
It's
a
part of,
explosion of wisdom and everything else. Here, you're like, you know what? Scarlett Johansson's old already, so you must be ancient. And I'm like, I heard somebody say that online. She's already old. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, this is bullshit.
yeah.
Pardon me, but I was like, come on, yeah. So I think a lot of it's
There's a lot of
cultural.
ageism. Yeah, you're right. 100%.
Yeah,
Like the Chinese call it the second spring, I think, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, to me, this is the best season.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, because I was talking to Sam Horn, who
Mhm.
you know about this, and I was like, at this time of life, when we're in midlife as women, we often have agency, right?
Yeah.
We have usually capacity to make decisions for ourselves. We have assets usually, so we usually have a little bit of disposable opportunity
Yeah.
for ourselves, and we have access, right? And that means that we have access to a lot of things. So we can actually harness this time and have so much bigger and more robust life
Yeah. And
because we're not
impact,
just,
right? I mean,
yeah,
I
and
think,
impact.
yeah.
Like that's what I
Yeah.
want. I
Yeah.
was like, women of the world will change the world
Yeah.
because 40 to 50 to 60 somethings are doing it.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing I'm super excited
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
it kind of keeps me going.
And you have to say that this is a country that it is possible. There are so many countries where by the time you're like in your 50s, it's time to retire, just take care of the grandkids and stay at home. And, I mean, I'm not saying all of that is not good, but if you are just driven and you're passionate and you want to continue working or serve the world in some way, I mean, it's really, yeah.
Yeah, we have the availability to do
Yeah.
that now, right? Yeah, there's countries that we wouldn't be able to look out the window because somebody else's gaze might see us, some man might see us looking out, and so, but, yeah, that's the dichotomy of being a woman today, like,
Yeah.
just
It's
craziness,
crazy.
so it's all true. It's all true. Well, Anu, thank you so much for being here,
Thank
and
you.
your website is Nine Arms of Wellness?
Mhm.
Awesome, so that's how everybody can
Yeah, and
find
I do
Anu?
have a gift for listeners, so
Yes.
I'll mail it to you. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and we'll make sure to include that in the show notes as
Okay.
well.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
This
Well,
was a
thank you.
pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Menopause Mastery. And we'll be back next week. And if you found this to be a fabulous episode, please share it with a friend because together we rise.